Hello, welcome, Marlene here. A little flashback to last Christmas when I made a mermaid Christmas tree. Some of the comments on Facebook were like, a mermaid Christmas tree, why? Why not, is what I say. So on to the step-by-step tutorial. I hope you enjoy it. I'm making a variety of fondant accents for my Christmas tree. So you want to take your fondant, just add a little bit of cornstarch to it so that it doesn't stick to the mold, and then just press it in there to make sure you get all the details, and then clean up your edges. There we go. I'm going to flip that out, and then I leave it dry on this mesh here, and the air gets in underneath, so I find that's ideal for it to dry quickly. And I'm just going to make a variety of different shells to go on my cookie. Now I'm getting my guidelines on the cookie here. I'm working in a brown marker. This will not be visible once the cookie is done. So use whatever color you have. Some of them we don't use them as often. This is a great way to use them up. Like orange, for example. Like I never use that marker. I usually stay away from the black one, however, because that can actually sometimes cause some bleeding in your design. Now you might want to, here, let me just reposition this. You might want to redraw like the mermaid's tail here, just to help you to see where it's going to go. There, and we're just going to outline all this. And I'm starting off by outlining the whole thing in some gold icing. The icing is not metallic, just gold color. And I'm working in a number 2 tip. I find that the more you keep your hand moving, you see, like keep it going, the smoother your lines are. If you go slow, well, it gives it more time to kind of be shaky. So I know it's not easy if you're a beginner, but if you can kind of keep it moving, and then if you're going to stop in corners like right there. Let's do the mermaid's tail now. And if you don't follow these guidelines exactly with the icing, it doesn't matter. They're just general to kind of help you line things up. No one will know if you decided to kind of tweak as you're decorating. There. And if you need to kind of flatten down any points, do that with your needle. Connect the lines, and we're going to let this dry. It has to dry completely so that we can do this area here. I want to do that in sanding sugar. My sanding sugar is a concoction that I did. I just mixed a bunch of colors together to make a more authentic looking sand. And now with my runny icing, I'm just filling in this section at the bottom And then we're going to sprinkle the wet icing with the sanding sugar. My bead tray is a bit small for this cookie, so I'm just kind of holding it over the bead tray. Don't overfill. Just like that. And then just pour all the sanding sugar on quickly. Remove the excess, and there we have our little sand at the bottom. At the top here, I didn't close off the star. I'm just sealing that and then flooding this area, and I'm going to drop in my fondant topper to my Christmas tree here. Here is my gold paint that I'm going to be using to airbrush all my lines. You could do it with a paintbrush, but I want to be able to work now. If you want to paint, you're going to have to wait for the lines to dry, and I just want to get it done. I'm impatient. Now, I talked about this before, I leave the needle exposed so that I can pull it back should I get any kind of clog there. And I have my gold ready to go. I'm testing on the paper here. And I'm just airbrushing this whole thing. And now I've got my gold disco dust here that I'm just adding to the top of the tree. Let's take a quick look at the tree. I've got the sanding sugar, painted gold, that gives nice texture at the bottom, and then I added a bit of disco dust to the star at the top for some added shine. And now we're going to fill in all these sections. It's not necessary for you to wait for the gold lines to dry completely. We can kind of move on now. I'm working on the mermaid's tail, and now I've got some white icing, and I'm just filling in the fin part here. I'm not adding a lot of icing. I want this to remain kind of flat looking. We'll have it a bit rounder on the meatier part of the tail. Just fill all this in, and now I'm grabbing some coral. I added quite a bit of food gel. I wanted it to be a deep color, and I'm just adding some lines to the fin part, just like that, and try to follow kind of the flow of the tail. You don't want to have like super straight lines. There, and now I'm just filling in all here, but this time a little bit more to get it a little bit rounder. Connect to the gold lines all around the perimeter and fill. I'm going to be marbling this with white and a lighter shade of this coral. So fill it up, and then we're just going to heal a little bit like that. Grabbing my white, leaving a space in between the lines here. I'm going to be adding the light in between. Follow the curve of this gold line. You don't want to go completely straight. Grabbing the lighter one now. There. And I'm pulling down to get my scales on the tail and wiping in between pulls. I'm following the shape of the of this line and that line. I'm not going straight like that. You see, and we're getting the scales. Let's give it a little shake. We're repeating exactly the same thing now on this tail. Just a different color. And the electric purple. Just filling this more than the tail area to get more roundness. And now the electric purple, but lighter shade. And again, not super straight lines. We're following the curve to give it the look of a real mermaid tail. Now the white in between those lines. And dragging from the end here down. My line didn't go all the way, so I'm going to pull it there and then drag it from the top down. Don't insert your needle too deep. You just want a surface drag. If you go all the way into your icing, you're displacing a lot of icing for nothing. You don't need to go all the way down to the bottom of the cookie. You just need the surface icing to get dragged. And a little shake. And now for some shine, I'm just adding a bit of disco powder to the wet icing here. This is Magical Creatures, and also it's a Christmas ornament, so we want a lot of shine. Here is the water, 3 shades of teal. This is all the same food gel, just a different amount. I started adding just a little bit to my bowl, then I put that in the piping bag, a little bit more to the bowl, added that to the piping bag, and then finally my darkest color. I'm going to alternate the shades all the way up the tree. With the darkest teal at the bottom here, and just fill. Don't fill too much. You don't want it to spill over your gold lines. So connect, but don't overfill. Once you've connected, just kind of spread it. Use the piping bag to help you move the icing around. It isn't a super runny icing. I'd say it's like a 20-second. And now in this wet icing, I'm adding a row of dots in different sizes to kind of look like bubbles in the water. Like that. And then this small section over here. Skip 2 rows, and then the dark over here. If a corner is too small for you to get in with your piping bag, you're better to drag it in with your needle, or else you'll mess up your cookie. Again with my dots along the top here. skip 2. And this area here. Now that I've done all my dark, I can come in with the lighter shade. And if you want, you can add different kind of lines and stuff to the sections, but there's a lot going on, so I'm going to keep the other sections pretty basic, just the color itself. And again, don't overfill so that your icing doesn't spill over onto your gold lines. But I'm not marbling or anything because the tails are marbled and I don't want to take away from that. So I'm keeping it simple for the rest of the sections. I want the focus to be on the little elements, not so much the tree, kind of like when we do an actual Christmas tree. The Christmas tree is the backdrop for our ornaments. And the final teal in the last 2 sections. And a shake to get the ripples out. But you don't have to fuss too much because there will be other things on there hiding any imperfections. But there we have it. It could be done right now, really. It could be done. Here are the seashells. I'm just painting them pearl and just coating them. I'm just splattering my shells here in gold. I need a bit more vodka. There. And let's see. I'm going to add a little bit of disco powder to them. We want them shiny. Completely gold the little seahorses. Let's see if we can get these with a bit of the gold disco powder. I want them all to look like little ornaments. A cool way to make coral is with nonpareil sprinkles. And I'm just going to quickly show you that. I've got them literally everywhere. I'm just pouring my excess back in here. And let's move the cookie to the tray. I'm working in the purple, same as the tail there, just to use it up. I'm taking my coral all the way up to the tail here to hide a bit the seam. And it's just wonky lines like that. Not perfect. It's supposed to look like natural, so don't worry about it looking too perfect. And now while the icing is wet, I'm sprinkling everything with my purple nonpareil, okay? And now we're going to tilt the cookie over carefully because they bounce everywhere to remove the excess. Now, to remove the excess ones, I'm using my airbrush, just blowing in between. There, cleans it up a bit. There we go. And now we'll be able to finalize. Working on the mermaid tail here, getting a little bit of texture on the edge to make it look more realistic. I've got a pretty stiff icing, white, and I'm just doing a wiggly line along the edge here. My icing is stiff, you see? My lines are really holding. And it's a pretty big tip. I think it's a 3. I'm using vodka because it dries faster, and I'm just pulling this icing down. Now when I pull, I'm getting streaks, like lines with my paintbrush, so I like that. It's giving me kind of the same effect as a real fin. It's making the icing a bit translucent, so I'm seeing my background, and it's flattening it, making it look more realistic. So if your icing is too runny, the lines will not stay with your paintbrush. They'll just heal. So it is important to have a thicker kind of icing. Here, repeating exactly the same thing, back and forth. You'll see this technique done on flowers, but it's perfect for a mermaid tail, as you can see. So I'm just pulling, and you see the tail comes to life. It makes it really that much more special. And your paintbrush should be a little bit damp, just it makes it easier to smooth the icing. And there we have our tails. Time to add our little fun decorations. Here I'm adding a little bit of kind of seaweed right here, hiding the edge of the mermaid, and I'm dropping in the wet icing a little crab, and the grass will secure the crab into position. There. Serves 2 purposes, to hide the mermaid edge and also to adhere the little crab. And now about here, I'm going to take my grass up here, since we have an opening, and then here, and that's going to hide this, and this is going to glue the sand dollar. And let's bring up a bit of this grass in front of the coral, and over here a bit of the grass this way. So let's lay our sand dollar right here, and now our seashell. I'm just adding a bit of icing glue, and I'm just dropping that kind of in front of it like that. And then I'm adding my little seahorse kind of right here in the middle. So I'm using the same colored icing behind so that if there's seepage, it won't show too much. So there's the little seahorse in the middle. And I wanted to add a little hanging seashell right here. I know it's kind of random, but it goes with the Christmas tree theme. So that's why I'm doing that. There. And just to fill in some of the gaps here, I'm adding bubbles. So bubbles coming up. Here I have some dry icing that's kind of here, so let's take that off. And the bubbles. So see, the bubbles kind of decorate and hide anything that you might not like. Like here I have a bit of a dent. My icing has caved a bit, so my bubbles will hide that, make it less apparent. And here are the completed cookies. Sadly, I did not see this cookie cutter again at Michael's. I really like the size and shape for a showpiece cookie. It was great. And some of the feedback I got on Facebook was that it was overdone, too much decoration. And if you plan on replicating these cookies, just add less stuff if you don't like all the little elements. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future uploads, and I'll see you next time.